Hi TYT Sports, it's me, Joshua Gibbs, Josh.0, Chief Josh Yola, whatever you want to call me, I'm here, also known as the Discount Scott Hansen. I'm here to talk about the WWE's Hell in the Cell. Just like every Sunday, Scott Hansen brings you 7 hours of commercial-free football with the NFL Network, so the WWE is now aiming to bring you 5+ hours every single pay-per-view. They're adopting this NFL model of more must be better. The NFL adds as much football programming as they can into the several months during the season. WWE has no off season, but they're still trying to how can they make more wrestling happen on your television set, not just through the network, but now with these pay-per-views, they have an hour-long pre-show, they've got the 3-hour-long event, and now with all these Raw pay-per-views, they're starting something called Raw Talk. There is a post-show that goes on for an hour after the pay-per-view ends, which is actually going on as we speak, and they're going to review everything they saw, they're going to talk to all the champions, all that stuff. So they're aiming to keep you glued to your television sets even longer. I'll skip it and we'll find out what happens later, but for tonight, we're going to go over the results of Hell in the Cell. The biggest news from this event was Charlotte versus Sasha Banks. We're going to main event Hell in the Cell. It is the first time women have competed in this type of match. So, did it live up to the hype? We'll get to that in just a second. The first match, we had one of 3 matches to take place inside the Hell in the Cell structure. And so the show got to open with Rusev versus Roman Reigns for the United States title. I still don't understand why people boo Roman Reigns. The guy's doing what he's got to do. He's being put in a tough spot, and now he's U.S. champ, and he's working hard. But people are still booing him when he comes out. He's not coming through the crowd anymore. He's just coming normally down the ramp. Comes in, they have a good kind of back and forth. There was a great moment when Rusev used a big, thick chain, like a bridle, and got it into Roman Reigns' mouth, and the crowd apparently really liked that for one reason or another. But looks like Rusev was going to get him in, put him in the Accolade, and then Roman Reigns was actually able to reverse it, drop him onto the steel steps that had been thrown into the ring, and then speared him from on top of that onto the mat. It was a really good spot, and Roman Reigns got the cover and retained his U.S. title. I hope WWE is listening. Please get a new U.S. title. All the other belts have been revamped in some way, shape, or form. The U.S. title is sorely in need of a redesign. Please, please hear my cries and just do it. Thank you. Next, we had Bayley versus Dana Brooke. Short match, kind of an appetizer for the women's match that we're going to get later. I love Bayley's attitude. She has this infectious positivity that's in such a stark contrast to other people we see on the show, where Bray Wyatt talks about eating your soul and all this other stuff, and Bayley comes out and lives the hug life and wants to hug everybody, and she has the wacky flailing arm tube man guys and all that stuff. So it's just so different than anything else, and it's fun, and it just kind of gives everybody a chance to relax and get away from other characters who tend to take themselves a little too seriously. The match itself wasn't anything spectacular. Bayley gets the win, as we knew she would. They're not going to bring everybody down so early in the show. Next, we have Enzo and Cass and Gallows and Anderson. I had my money on Gallows and Anderson for the simple fact that the mistreatment of them since they came into the WWE has been borderline criminal. These guys had all the hype in the world, and yet it just seems that WWE has kind of thrown them to just anybody and said, we'll put you in these meaningless feuds and you'll just kind of swim around and let you tread water until we can figure out what to do with you. And so they put them with Enzo and Cass, whose popularity is in the stratosphere. So they didn't need to win this match to get over and to be popular, whereas Anderson and Gallows really did, because they've been getting the short end of the stick for several months. Enzo and Cass, of course, come out and hit all of the pop culture wickets. Since the show was in Boston, I heard references to the Celtics, Big Papi, and House of Pain. So they immediately got the crowd on their side with cheap pops, which there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. They had a decent back and forth in the match itself, and then Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows end up getting the win. Good for them. I just hope that this can be momentum to something better, because they are really great wrestlers, and this could lead to something for them. So let's see. Next, we had our second of 3 Hell in a Cell matches. This was Kevin Owens and Seth Rollins. This was the match I wanted to see. Both of these guys are incredibly good workers. They're incredibly talented on the mic, incredibly talented in the ring. And so I think Hell in a Cell was a perfect environment for them. And this was something that you just knew they were absolutely going to bring their A games. And they did. This match was incredible. Great use of the cage. They set up tables. They set up 2 tables, one on the outside, right outside the ring, between the ring and the cage, and then another one kind of at an angle. And you just knew someone was going to go through that eventually. Then the ref got sprayed in the eye with a fire extinguisher. So as he's being escorted out of the cage, Chris Jericho runs in and locks himself inside. So it essentially becomes a 2-on-1, and it's no disqualification. So anything can happen inside. Owens ends up going through the tables, but it's still not enough for Seth Rollins to overcome the 2-on-1, and Seth Rollins ends up losing the match, and so Owens retains his Universal title. I said after that match ended, I said the WWE has set up the women for failure, because there is no way that Sasha Banks and Charlotte is going to overcome that. They can't pull off the same spots. I don't think WWE would let them pull off the same spots, because a lot of those were much more high risk and incredibly dangerous. And I don't think the WWE is there yet. I don't think they're ready to let their women take those kind of risks. So much respect for especially Sasha and Charlotte and all the women on the roster, but I just don't think the WWE is not comfortable with it. But more on that in a little bit. Next, we had the Cruiserweight Championship, the TJ Perkins and Brian Kendrick match. I love what the WWE has done with the Cruiserweight division. I just wish that they could have kept up the momentum after the Cruiserweight Classic. I like that WWE has evolved as a brand. Instead of just resting on their laurels and doing something they've already done, like the brand split, and kind of letting that happen again, they added in this Cruiserweight Classic and this entire new division to introduce people who may not be familiar with Cruiserweight and Lucha Libre style wrestling. And these guys are absolutely incredible. They put on a really fantastic show. And it's nothing like what you'll see in other matches. So it gives people a chance to really expand their horizons on some types of wrestling that they may not be familiar with. If you don't know the story behind why they were fighting, Kendrick and TJ Perkins are friends that go way back in the day. Brian Kendrick was an old WWE employee. He was sort of the mentor to TJ Perkins. And of course, he's the bad guy, though, so he uses bad guy ways to fake an injury. And then when TJ goes to help him out, he rolls him up into what he calls the captain's hook, which is his submission. He's got this kind of weird pirate thing going on. I'm glad he won, just so maybe he can afford some better tights, because the ones that Kendrick wears are just absolutely awful. But Brian Kendrick gets the win due to trickeration, and he is your new Cruiserweight champion. So good for him. But hopefully now we can get to some better matches, because the Cruiserweight division deserves it. Next, we have the New Day versus Sheamus and Cesaro. I predicted New Day was going to win because I think WWE is in love with records. They want to see all these old records from the bygone eras erased, which is the only reason why we had the Bellas, why she held on to the Women's Championship for so long, was just to break AJ Lee's record, because AJ is no longer with the company. It's really stupid and it's really petty, but that's exactly how Vince McMahon thinks. So, Demolition held the tag titles for 478 days. That's the record. New Day has currently held them for 434. I don't see them losing before that time, and that held up here. Same decent match back and forth. I don't know why Sheamus and Cesaro were paired up. I think it's because WWE simply doesn't know what to do with them. So they had a very strange best-of-7 series, which I thought was incredibly weird, especially for two guys who don't really work well against each other. And now, for some reason, they're pairing them up. I guess they look at them as, oh, look, opposites will attract and it'll be great. It's okay, yeah, sure. I'm all for trying new things, but I just don't think it's working. And sure enough, they technically won the match by disqualification, but that doesn't mean they win the titles. So New Day retains, and they are still your tag team champions. Now, here we get on to the main event. This was it, folks. The Sasha Banks versus Charlotte. This is what this whole show was building to. WWE has incredible packages for putting these things together. They didn't disappoint here. But how is the actual match going to go? So Charlotte took advantage of Sasha and attacked her before the cell even dropped. And so we thought, okay, they're going to fight outside for a while. And they did a really great table spot where Charlotte power bombed Sasha through the table, and it looked vicious. It looked like it hurt. However, the work of Sasha Banks faking this back injury goes on way too long. It just took up a lot of time that should have been involved, saved for actual wrestling. And so just as they're about to call the match for Charlotte and give her the belt, Sasha throws off all the medical personnel and runs into the ring, and then they actually start having their match. And from there, everything just went downhill. My opinion, you may feel differently. I'm actually hoping that you do comment about it and tell me what you think, but I think this match was a waste of time. Not to say that if it would have been a regular match, it would have been fantastic. If it would have just been a straight up fight, this would have been a better than average match, but this was not Hell in a Cell worthy. Hell in a Cell is supposed to be unique for the way that the cell is utilized, and the cell barely came into play during this match, not in the way it should. I would submit this to you. If you think it was great, ask yourself, what's the difference between this match and a regular cage match? Why couldn't this have happened in a cage? The answer is there's no difference. It very well could have. So why waste the Hell in the Cell moniker on a match like this? I was extremely disappointed that they didn't let them do the big bumps and do the big spots that you would have normally seen in Hell in the Cell. Rumor is that Charlotte wanted to do a moonsault off the top of the cell, and Vince said no. Not sure if there's any truth to that, but rumor's not a rumor that doesn't die. So who knows what we could have seen. But for me personally, I was extremely disappointed and let down that they built up this match so much, and I don't think that they moved their women in the right direction that they wanted them to. I feel for the announcers and all the other people who have to talk up this match as if it was the greatest thing ever, and it's the evolution of women's wrestling, and yada. To me, it's not necessarily a step back, but it's not a step forward either. You're standing still. You didn't move anywhere. This match could have taken place in any other setting, and that to me says everything. That says it all. Unless you can definitively say, yes, this was Hell in a Cell worthy. They used the cell. There was amazing spots using the cell. The cell has to be part of the story. That's what separates it from everything else. And it just didn't. Anything else that I put on other than that? Unfortunately, some of the bumps didn't work. They tried at the end. Charlotte tried to put Sasha through a table a few times that just simply would not break. And unfortunately, the match had to end on another down note. Not the way you wanted the match to end, but Charlotte ends up covering and is your new women's champion. So are we going to get a rematch? Probably. This seems to be the feud that's just never ending, and I kind of feel bad for all the other deserving women in the women's division. So I was kind of hoping that Nia Jax would come out and rip the cell door off like Kane or something like that, because she's one of the more dominant women in the WWE right now. So unfortunately, it looks like we're going to have to go through with Charlotte and Sasha Banks feuding for at least a little bit longer. So that was Hell in the Cell 2016. We are on now to talking about Survivor Series, November 20th from Canada. The big thing there is going to be Goldberg and Brock Lesnar. So that's what we're going to be inundated with for the next few weeks until that match happens. So what did you think about Hell in the Cell? As always, leave a comment below. As you guys know, I respond back to almost every single comment because I love the fact that you guys took the time to watch this video. You took the time to comment. So I want to take the time to respond back to you. So until next time, thanks again to TYT, and thank you for watching. Talk to you later.